Hey guys, so this is what if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was in the MCU or was in the MCU more earlier. Now, I know Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is going to be in the MCU since Spider-Man 3 and all that is coming up. But, yet again, I'm just going to be seeing how it would change the MCU if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was casted to play the leading role of the MCU Spider-Man. So, let's get into it. Basically, well, the time Marvel bought Sony's right to Spider-Man, they bought rights to Spider-Man right after Spider-Man 3. And Tobey Maguire in this universe actually did think that he had enough, you know, or acting, strength to pull off a Spider-Man 4. So pretty much after, Spider-Man 4 is basically Spider-Man fighting Rhino and Spider-Man, facing off against 4 of his villains. Facing off against, Sandman again. Facing off against a more buffier Venom that was, actually, no. He was facing off against Carnage, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman again, and also he was facing off against, he was also facing off against Mysterio. Now, basically, all those villains were introduced, and basically, since Tobey Maguire is going to be the MCU Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland's movies were never made. So yeah, basically, Spider-Man goes into the MCU, and he starts off being in Avengers 1. Now, Avengers 1, basically they set up Spider-Man 4 was in this, more of the, more accurate, more better looking version of, New York, the more time accurate New York in the 2000s. So basically, Spider-Man pretty much meets up with the Avengers in the first Avengers movie, watching them fight. Now, pretty much Spider-Man is not introduced into the Avengers until after the end credits. After the end credits, Spider-Man is revealed to, to be joined or be hired by, Nick Fury to join the Avengers. Now, basically, the next Avengers movie, Age of Ultron, pretty much the next Avengers movie, Spider-Man goes into Age of Ultron. Now, meet up with Spider-Man, right in the beginning of Age of Ultron, and them, attacking the Hydra base. So Spider-Man's flipping around, flipping and webbing up, people left and right, and kicking them into walls. Now, I forgot to mention this, but I will be scaling powers, because I'm pretty sure Tobey Maguire is the most flexible Spider-Man, and not really the most flexible. It's probably a tie between Tom Holland and him. Now, I know the most flexible means how, you can stretch and spin, not how fast you can. So, don't bring up the mention that, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man can dodge freaking lightning. So, that's based off speed, not, agility, or even, flexibility. That's based off just speed in general. So, yeah. So, basically, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man has shown a lot of strength, being able to stop a whole entire bus by himself, able to pretty much take a pounding of almost getting crushed by literal sand without passing out or dying, because getting crushed by sand has to be so scary and painful. And also, Spider-Man also survived a car crash. Now, it's not really that big of a deal for heroes to survive a car crash, but that's a lot of, stress, because he got in a car crash from an armored car and punched through it. So that's a pretty good amount of strength. And he was also able to, I think it was able to no, he wasn't able to stop a truck, but he could stop a train, so I'm pretty sure he could stop a truck or a car easily. So yeah. So basically, let's do it. So basically, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man has been able to, pull in a bunch of strength and really boost up, and when he gets serious, he can actually cause real damage. Like how he pretty much, well, threw a goblin grenade right into, and right into what you would call it. Now, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man has shown the most durability of all of them. Now, let's be real. He took a goblin grenade, the same goblin grenade that can disintegrate a normal person from a couple of feet away to the bone without without none of the DNA or flesh even on the bone anymore. Basically, killing the person instantly. And Spider-Man took one of those straight to the face, not even with a little bit of. He didn't even get a mark like how Harry got. He straight up just walked away from it a couple minutes later, or a couple hours later. I don't know. So yeah. But I'm gonna say his spider sense isn't really that on par because he was tricked by Green Goblin, and he should have sensed that. But yeah, so basically, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is gonna be I'm just gonna make him a little bit more stronger. So basically, for the whole entire Hydra fighting scene, Spider-Man slips into the building with Tony, and pretty much they go inside the building, and and pretty much Spider-Man's swooping around, and he gets stopped by Wanda. Wanda shoots an energy blast towards pretty much what do we call it? It's Spidey, and Spidey gets blasted away. And pretty much Spidey gets knocked out, and we skip a little bit later after the Hydra base, and how they, flew off in the Quinjet with the, spear. So basically they're in the Quinjet and the spear, and Peter, gets up. So pretty much they get started, and they go back to Avengers Mansion. After that, a couple minutes later, or a couple days later, Ultron is made. Ultron pretty much, does that, attacks the Avengers all the same. Spidey, helps out Black Widow and Hawkeye and other, Avengers, take him out. And for the whole entire thing with, the place where they go down there with Claw, like how Claw was made, how Ultron cut off Claw's hand, and the whole entire thing with the vibranium place where, Pietro and Wanda went there. I forgot to mention that scene in my what if Pietro survived, but nothing really changed because Pietro didn't change back then. So yeah, I forgot to mention that scene when I did what if Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was in the MCU. But yeah, so basically, Tobey Maguire pretty much goes in there and they start the whole entire fighting scene. So they start the fighting scene and Ultron attacks, and pretty much Spidey actually flips up in there and flips away a canister of vibranium out of Ultron's hand, saying that your reign of terror is over. Tony says that's the best you got. Peter says I've been working on it, and pretty much minutes after that he gets hit in the back of the head by Ultron. They start fighting and Tony goes head to head with Ultron. So they start fighting. Pietro starts running around, pretty much punching people, and Pietro tries to punch Peter, but Peter dodges for some reason so fast because Peter is pretty fast. He was able to freaking go to change direction in the sky fast enough to go through like 2 buildings through such little tiny holes. So yeah, and also he was fast enough to dodge mechanical arms that can move as fast as, well, a speeding bullet or something like that. I think I was in a wiki of how fast Dr. Octavius' arms were in Spider-Man 2, but yeah. So, yeah, so basically, they start fighting left and right, and Pietro still gets knocked out because he does, try to grab Thor's hammer, and he gets smacked away. Cap has to stay down, and pretty much Peter whips Pietro down to the floor. Pietro tries to get out. He does get out, but eventually the fight's all over, and pretty much Pietro, runs behind, Wanda pretty much say that we gotta go. Wanda makes all of the Avengers have those nightmares or dreams, and she also gives Peter nightmares and dreams. So Peter's nightmare is basically him, well, pretty much Spidey gets thrown, pretty much has a nightmare about how he let Uncle Ben die, and how Aunt May in this universe actually did pass away doing Spider-Man 4. Pretty much Peter is thinking about how he's lost everybody in his life, but also thinking how he has everything as well. Now in this universe, Peter is, in college. He's an adult, and he's actually, a official Avenger. But also at the same time, he also is married to he also was married to, um, what was it? Mary Jane in this universe. So yeah, Mary Jane is married to Peter in this universe. So Peter thinks that, he breaks through the mind control pretty fast than all the other, Avengers, because he knows that he has more, potential now since he can start a family. Pretty much he gets back up on his feet and he looks around. Peter starts running around, pretty much trying to find, Wanda. Hawkeye still does that whole entire thing with Wanda putting that arrow on her head, but Pietro still knocks out, or kicks away Hawkeye and starts running away. So Spider-Man stops them and pretty much starts fighting them, punching Wanda straight in the face, making her nose bleed. Pietro gets mad and pretty much super punches Spidey straight in the chest, knocking him out, and also breaking some, ribs. So Pietro grabs Wanda and runs off. So Ultron also flees as well and gets out of there. So yeah, so Wanda uses the last of her, strength to pretty much mind control Hulk and the whole entire, freaking Hulk thing that happened. Iron Man still sends the Hulk Buster, and pretty much they go, Hulk busting. So Hulk and Iron Man have the same, whole entire fight over and over again, and Spider-Man just watches it from the main line, also flipping away, civilians to get them out of, danger. So, for the next part, Peter, for the next part, Peter goes back to, Avengers Tower after they, take down Hulk, or, secure Hulk. So, Pete, so pretty much Peter, is in Avengers Tower, and pretty much they're talking about how Ultron has gotten so strong. Eventually, we skip to the Sokovia place. How Sokovia was the Sokovia Awards. Well, when the Sokovia Awards, the Sokovia. So basically, when Ultron, is starting off his plan to explode the city. Now, Pietro still dies. Wanda still leaves her post, and well, yeah, Pietro still dies, gets shot down. Spidey does try to save him, but he's too late, and Hawkeye and the little girl are still alive. So basically, for the whole entire thing with whatchamacallit, Wanda leaves her post, crying and leaving out all that energy. The last, Ultron bot grabs the button and the whole entire thing happens all over again. Peter does save a little. They do save a little bit more civilians because Peter is there, and also Peter does save Pietro and other people's bodies. Pretty much saving people left and right, and getting pretty good helping hands. So after Age of Ultron, after the cities exploded, everybody goes back, to being an Avenger. Some people don't. Some people do. Nothing really that special. Ultron still does get, nuked or, folded by Vision, and all is well. Nothing really changed that much, but it did. But it would be cool if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was actually in the MCU. So basically, Peter takes, that leap of faith after, pretty much Peter does go with the Captain America team, Cap's team, when they go, out there to stop Crossbones at the place. So Peter, they follow the Crossbone henchman and Crossbone into the pretty much market, and Peter follows the other one after, have Black Widow follow the other one. Spider-Man takes out the other one, behind him, knocking him out, grabbing the serum from him. They hear a huge explosion, and that's when Wanda threw Crossbones into the building. So basically, we skipped the Soviet Accords, and pretty much everybody, is saying that you have to sign this, or blah, blah, blah. They're pretty much explaining the Soviet Accords. And Tony getting an argument, and pretty much getting angry at, Steve. Peter says, to knock it off and chill down. And pretty much, Peter, goes off. Peter does go, in this movie, Peter, goes to home to spend his anniversary with oh no, sorry guys, Mary Jane. Sorry, I forgot that name. Mary Jane. Mary Jane. To spend his anniversary with Mary Jane. So he's called back to the Avengers mansion at Avengers Tower after the whole entire thing, or the Avengers place after the whole entire thing. And basically, he goes back there to Avengers headquarters. So, let me get that out of here. Avengers headquarters. So he goes back there, and he sees that everybody, is some people are signing the accord, some people aren't, and pretty much we skip all the way to basically the the pretty much the place how the whole entire lobby thing, the airport fight. So we skip to the airport fight, and Peter pretty much walks over there. Peter pretty much sees this as a good opportunity and gets out one of his new suits that he's made. The only thing that changed about Tobey's suit is that the blue in his outfit was changed to a pitch black. So he swoops up in there and they start, fighting. So basically, they start fighting and going at it. So with the whole entire, fighting scene, Peter runs doing the whole entire, running sequence. So they start fighting left and right. Peter starts fighting everybody, that original Spider-Man fought, and winning really, fast. Because, this Peter is more experienced and more stronger. So they start fighting, and eventually, Giant Man appears. Giant Man goes crazy, and Peter basically stops him using his bare hands. Peter flips his, knees together, but he also kicks, Ant-Man in the back of his knee, making him kneel down and fall to his face. He turns back into normal size, and he's knocked out. So basically, Spidey starts flipping around left and right, and pretty much, kicking down people left and right. Eventually, Peter sees that, Cap and Bucky are trying to get to the, Quinjet. Peter follows them and gains, and also he sees that Black Panther gets stalked by Black Widow. Peter drop kicks Black Widow into face and pretty much knocks her out and whips on the back of Cap and Bucky's whole entire Quinjet. He sticks on the back of them and stays there. So for the rest of the flight, when they go to that whole entire place where Black Panther follows them, pretty much they get there and Spidey follows Bucky and pretty much follows Bucky and Cap, and Iron Man also follows them and finds out that Bucky killed Tony's parents. Peter looks at Bucky and pretty much says, "You murderer," and pretty much helps, fight Bucky and Cap alongside Tony. So he starts fighting left and right. They start throwing punches, all sorts of stuff. Peter is, punching them, throwing them against walls, webbing them up. Pretty much they're going like 1v1s. They're double tagging each other. Pretty much eventually, Tony gets, pinned by Bucky, but Bucky, his arm does get disintegrated by Iron Man's, what was it? Iron Man's, uh, Iron Man's chest beam. Yeah. And pretty much he starts, fighting more and more. Eventually, Cap overpowers Tony, but Tony does get, a helping hand because Peter kicks Cap straight in the face, sending him flying a couple feet. Pretty much, Cap gets back up, throws the shield at Tony, and, well, not at Tony, the wall behind Tony, pretty much, ricocheting off of Peter's back, knocking out Peter. So, after that, Peter and Tony basically go night-night. So, Cap and Bucky go, into hiding, and I'm gonna leave it off here, and I'm gonna, end it off. I'm gonna be continuing this, what if, and seeing how it would change in-game and also Infinity War. So yeah, see you guys later. Bye. Deuces, and as always, have a blessed day. Bye, guys.